Are you guys ready? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Please help me welcome the Hard Rock. Hi everyone. Today we will be talking about the Hard Rock. My name is Ashley Eskenazi.
My name is April Wolf, and this is the rest of our group. Mine is too.
So we'll start talking about the history. In 1971, the first Hard Rock Cafe was opened by Peter Morden and Isaac Tigret. And after 10 years, they began their global expansion. They opened restaurants in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and they also moved across the world to Paris and Berlin.
The company Mecca purchased Tigret's interest in the Hard Rock, and then they, several years later, the Ray Group, which is a London-based leisure company, acquired Mecca soon after and obtained the overall control of the Hard Rock brand. In 2006, the final acquisition occurred when the Seminole Tribe of Florida acquired the Hard Rock International Incorporated and other related entities.
Okay. So the Hard Rock focuses on three things. One is differentiation, the next is diversification, and the next is globalization. And I'll start with differentiation, which has to do with music, locations, merchandise, and the web. And they offer many products which are hard to duplicate, and every Hard Rock is basically the same thing, except it differs based on the culture and the location when you go to it. For example, in Britain, they fear mad cow disease, so they try to keep hamburgers off the menu and they try to make it more of a lobster and fish type restaurant. And they also, souvenirs are also a big thing. They spend millions of dollars each year on their souvenirs, and they base them on legends of rock, such as Elvis, and they also, their collection's worth about 40 million as of right now. So that's a pretty big.
The Hard Rock expanded internationally in 1982, and currently they have 138 locations in over 50 countries, so numerous people get to experience this American restaurant. Actually, in 2008, the company owned only 52% of the Hard Rock Cafe restaurants, all the rest were franchises. And with regards to diversification, the company is extremely diverse and shows presence in not only just the restaurant sector, but in casino, hotel, and store industries as well.
So here are a few random facts on the Hard Rock. They are known for their dedication and assisting in philanthropies. Their CEO and president is Hamish Dodds. They are active in 138 locations in over 50 countries, and Germany has 4. And the one in Berlin was opened in 1992. And they have a 92% name recognition, which means that they're the top 10 most recognized restaurants in the world. And they achieve this by making their restaurants, changing them from an individual theme into more of an experience economy.
Now we're going to discuss some opportunities and threats, and their first opportunity is the memorabilia. Hard Rock Cafe has actually invested $41 million in one of the world's largest collection of rock and roll memorabilia, and they actually currently have 70,000 pieces of memorabilia. Berlin brings in millions of dollars in revenue after purchasing this memorabilia in 1 year alone. Some threats with the Hard Rock is that they focus on experience and ambiance too much and don't really focus enough on the food aspect of the restaurant. And they also rely too heavily on the demand from tourism, and so that makes them very vulnerable to fluctuations in travel, such as what happens during times of recession.
So now I'll discuss the industry analysis. In 2011, full-service restaurants grew 4% to 16.9, and Hard Rock has a really strong brand loyalty. As you can see, they had 92% name recognition. And chain restaurants have continued to see a faster growth rate as a result of this. Independent restaurants dominate in Berlin because there's just a larger number of them compared to chain restaurants, and there's an enormous amount of competition between restaurants. And in the future, according to Euromonitor, the revenues are actually expected to decrease.
We're going to take a look at political risk, and actually Germany does not have that much political risk considering they're much like United States and Europe, and they're very politically stable. People will have no issues with intellectual property rights or personal or civil liberties, so they'll be able to spend a lot of their savings on the Hard Rock and luxury goods.
So now I'll talk about economic, and there's a current financial crisis going on in Greece and Italy, which is clearly having an effect on the European countries and also Germany. And this can affect the euro, and if the euro is affected, there could be a downward spiral in spending of luxury goods, which means that people will buy the products that the Hard Rock Cafe offers, which can really hurt the company because that's a huge part of their business. and it can also affect other businesses across the globe as well, and this can be caused because of decreased consumer confidence.
In regards to social climate, Germany has a very direct culture, even more so than in America, and individuals are more likely to be ambitious and in turn usually have more drive to be successful, which will allow them to have a larger marginal propensity to consume household income in a population.
And lastly, we'll talk about the legal climate. And after World War II, the Federal Republic of Germany put into place a second democratic system, and it was known as the Basic Law.
The legal climate is also very similar to the United States. Foreign investment is widely and openly accepted throughout the country, and the businesses are encouraged to grow and prosper.
And this concludes our presentation on the hard rock. We need to
All right, Group 1, please help me welcome the group presenting on the U.S. Commercial Service.
So our group is presenting, as she stated, the U.S. Commercial Service. I'm Rosanna Gallego.
My name is Eduard. And I'm Taylor.
Okay, we're going to get started. So the history of the U.S. Commercial Service. The U.S. Commercial Service is one of four foreign agencies that are foreign services agencies that are part of the Foreign Service Act of 1980. So they're very dedicated to their foundations. It was technically founded in 1897 as the Bureau of Foreign Commerce. It has developed over the years to include the Department of Commerce and Labor. In 1980, it got its name that it has today, the U.S. and actual foreign commercial service. And they did that to link the initiatives that it has for domestic and foreign organizations to operate under one roof, under one purpose. Today it promotes, it's a trade promotion company that provides services to American companies. So what it does is that it basically helps with level the playing field for U.S. companies that are trying to export abroad. It does have a focus on small and medium-sized businesses. So just last year, it had 85% of its company was focused on small and medium-sized businesses. The director of the USCS is currently Charles Ford. He became involved with the U.S. Commercial Service in 2010 as deputy. But as of now, actually 2012, I apologize for the date, but May 2012, he became the head of the U.S. Commercial Service. Before that, he was become an advisor. He was an ambassador to Honduras. He has a long history in the Foreign Service. In distinguished achievements, he did also last year from 2011 to 2012 increase the exports in dollar value 58% for companies. And it promotes connections. Its focus is promoting connections. So he does focus on increasing resiliency to economic fluctuations for the companies and also increasing jobs, both domestically and foreign. He promotes the fundamentals of the company, which are knowledge, confidence, and resources, providing these for U.S. companies so they can succeed abroad. Global businesses. It has over 115 global offices in 80 countries. It gains assistance through business evaluation surveys. So it has a process for the companies, identify the target market, then it moves into the business info for what the business is trying to portray, and then moves on to the marketing entry strategy. So through these services, USCS provides a support for the companies in trade counseling, market intelligence, commercial diplomacy, and business marketing. Thus, you see USCS is an advocate. So to talk a little bit more about how is it an advocate for the companies, Sarah.
Great. Thanks, Rosanna. Okay, next we're going to be talking about USCS in Germany. Now when we talk about USCS in Germany, again, they are an advocate, and one of the things that they do is they help in negotiating with the trade barriers and providing financial leveraging loans to potential clients that want to enter the German markets. And again, most of these are small to medium-sized businesses that work with USCS. One of the interesting facts that we did find is that for Germany, USCS likes to focus on trade shows for these companies entering the market. That seems like an opportunity for USCS because for some reason Germans prefer trade shows over some other opportunities of connection. They also provide recommendations for market entry, so whether they want to just export, do licensing, joint venture, do a direct investment, they can help them in those decisions. And they also provide allowances and deductions. The USCS also helps businesses from a financial standpoint at some points. From here we can see some opportunities and threats. We can see that the advertising and promotion competition, you do have marketing companies within Germany and newspapers, trade magazines, publications. It's not a surprise that they're there, but they do take away some of the opportunity for the USCS to step in and to be as effective as they can be because of that private competition. You also see connection threats with the individual and small consulting firms within Germany and even within the US to connecting for global business. One of the opportunities that we do have is President Obama's National Export Initiative in 2009, I believe it is, which his goal was to double exports by 2014. So there's definitely some funding coming in as far as for the USCS to make sure this does happen. There's again, just a large number of small to medium size. For the sector, Germany is the 4th largest economy in the world, so this is a great opportunity for us, or for USCS to use. They're the 3rd in world trade imports, which I'm going to show you a graph here in just a second to kind of illustrate that point further. In 2011, they had 1.1 trillion in total imports. And imports include a lot of commodities, also a lot of machinery, oil, gas, chemicals, metal. Especially if they're making cars, metal and machinery is obviously something that they are going to need. From here, what I'd really like to point out is you can see the growth in imports from just before 2011. You had 65.3, and even though they are in a European crisis at the moment, you can see that in April of 2012 they had their highest number of imports, which was 81.4 billion euros. So this is a great opportunity for the USCS to continue to grow on this wave. So now I'd like to hand it over to Edward as he finishes up.
Thank you, Taylor. So some factors that will affect growth for the USCS, first of all, would be the exchange rate, depending which side of the coin you are standing on, whether from the United States or Germany. An appreciation or the depreciation in exchange rate will help one economy or the other. Trade policies, this would be more like import quotas. There are import quotas in Germany as well as the European Union. So to export to Europe, you do have to first go through the EU and then the regulations of Germany. And then after, shipping costs and production costs, depending on how expensive or cheap it is to ship, that will have an effect on what country it's importing from as well as the produce that it's producing. Germany is focused on an open market policy. It is international trade is a good promoter of its economy. This goes through the German Customs Administration, which decides what the regulations are, and Germany does like to protect its home economy from domestic businesses, the population, and the environment. Opportunities and threats, the size of the economy, the fact that they do speak English, the open trade policies. As everyone said, the euro crisis is a threat. The regulations, and Germans are nationalistic about their economies. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, please help me welcome Group 3.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today our team will introduce you the Build Link, that is the Berlin Stock Exchange. And let's start. Today I'll introduce you the background of this company, and Mr. Lee will introduce to you the global and domestic business of this company, and Mr. Lee will introduce to you the threats and opportunity of the Build Link. Let's start with the background. Build Link was founded in 1938 in a garden house in Worcester Garden, and the first The first prosperity of this company was brought by the first industrialization and influenced by the World War II and the financial crisis in 1930s. The Berlin Stock Exchange has been closed for a long time, and it reopened in 1952. And on October 1997, it was presented on the internet. And Berlin Stock Exchange take the niche strategy to develop its company. Since 1990s, it focused on the trading in a wide range with foreign stocks. And start in 2007, it started to grow and make money by reaching out and broke throughout the Europe. And the CEO of the Berlin is are the two joint CEOs. The first one is Dr. Jörg Walter. He was appointed as the CEO of this company from the 2000. Before come to the Berlin Stock Exchange, he was working as a competition lawyer in a legal department. And Mr. Arthur Fischer, who is appointed at 2007, and he was the former director in Frankfurt Stock Exchange.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the mission and goals of the Berlin Stock Exchange. Okay, their goal is to create a constant collaboration with their citizens, which means they place the interest of their citizens above all other considerations, and providing their citizens tailor-made solutions through the investment opportunities and through the agency agreements with prestigious banks, financial institutions, and private investors. And the missions, they have several missions. The first is build people, build business, which means they have long-term relationship with leading German specialist sponsors, investment banks, and investors. So who connect to the top of the German investment community, and which will help your firm from a startup to Fortune 500 company. And they also state never leave their citizens alone, which means they provide a full package of service offering to their citizens, and they provide their citizens complete access to everything from finance to outsourced sales, marketing, and information and technology. The next one, I'm going to talk the global and the domestic business of the Berlin Stock Exchange. So since the middle 1990s, it pursued a successful strategy of diversity and trading and increased the number of large stocks. And it has a strong trading market of over 100 million populations, and their citizens from U.S., Canada, China, and Vietnam. In 2007, the Berlin Stock Exchange acquired the majority stake in London-based company Aqueduct System, and which allowed them to gain the control of electronic platform. And it also pursue a program of pan-European expansion. And next, my teammate is going to talk about the opportunity and the threats.
Okay, then let's talk something about the opportunity and the threats of the Berlin Stock Exchange. Now, first, the opportunities that is the first is the market trying to invest in foreign equities. Just as my teammates introduced, that it's got a success there in the mid-1990s, and through a strategy called NIC. And I think they will copy their strategy, and they will got another success. And then the IPOs and going public are very easy there, and and then it got a benefit for the access to new market and investors because they consist of with 100 million people and with the fastest growth rate per capita. And here comes some threats from the external environment and also in the internal environment. For the external, there are more than 6,000 companies there in the Berlin Stock Exchange list. So it's sometimes got a controversy within the exchange. And also it's got a very strengthened active stock exchange competitors such as the U.S. and the London Stock Exchange. And here is a chart that's showing that the stock market capitalizations around the world. And we can see that the Germany is around here and it only 3%, and the U.S. got a dominating position there at about 30%. This is only a brief overview of Berlin Stock Exchange. I believe we will learn more after the Berlin Stock Exchange. And thanks for listening.
Great. So please help me welcome Group 4.
So, welcome to our presentation, and we are Group 4, and the company is Siemens, which is a giant in electronic engineering industry. Siemens is headquartered in Berlin, Germany, and it has office in US, UK, Singapore, China, and other countries with over 360,000 employees in 140 countries all over the world. So, it's formed by Werner von Siemens in 1847, October 12. It becomes the world-leading electronic engineering company in 1920s. But in the World War II, Siemens actually lost almost 80% of its total assets, but it bounced back to the leader in the world in 1955. In 1966, October 1st, Siemens AG formed, and it did joint venture acquisition and also forming the strategic relationship with worldwide company during the 90s and at the very beginning of the 21st century. And nowadays, the CEO of the Siemens is Peter Loster, which is the first non-German born CEO of Siemens. Siemens' have the goal is to create a one Siemens, which means to find a profitable way to create value sustainably. And it's aimed to be a pioneer in the technology-driven growth markets. To be a pioneer, I mean, innovation and more R&D is more necessary for Siemens in the future. It has also the value of responsible excellence and innovation. For the responsible, which means they have the high quality standard and the same internal standard to both customer, employees, and shareholder. And it also has that innovation and R&D standard all over the world.
Okay, thanks, Winnie. Now we are going to talk about the Siemens globalization. And we all know that Siemens is an international big company, and it has already enlarged its operations to 190 regions. It's amazing if you know that there is only 224 regions in this world. And these are three most important industries of Siemens. It's including the energy industry and healthcare industry and infrastructure and cities industries. And we can divide the Germany and Siemens because it's not just because it's a Germany company, and we can see that more than half of the power plants connected to Germany's power grid use Siemens turbines and generators, and about 1% of Germany's jobs are directly or indirectly linked to Siemens. So we can see how important Siemens is to Germany. And now we are going to talk about the opportunities and threats of Siemens. I'm sorry.
We can go back to this one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. First, we are going to talk about the opportunities. The first is unexplored and unknown alternative energy, because we can see that energy is very important for industries like Siemens, because they have to use the energy to produce something, and the green energy is now more important for the world. And if we want to if we want to grab these opportunities, we have to invest more things into the R&D projects every year, and it includes the financial things and human resource things. And the second opportunities for Siemens is the emerging markets, BRICS. I bet you all know BRICS. It means the Brazil and Russia and India and China. Oh yeah. And including the South Africa. South Africa is a new member of the BRICS. Yeah. And we have to grab, Siemens have to grab these opportunities because it's a new emerging market. It's the 5 leading emerging countries almost represents 3 billion of people, and it represents the nominal GDP of $13.7 trillion. So it's important. Yeah. And now we're talking about the threats. The first one is the increasing prices of natural resource, because the oil price, the Siemens need natural resources to produce their things. So the increasing prices may put much more pressure on their producing. Yeah. And the second one is the difficulties in operating in different countries. We all know that different countries have different regulations, different policies. So, and as big as the Siemens, they have so much the subsidiaries in different countries. It's very difficult for them to operating in different countries. And we also want to talk about the risk of opening a new plants, because every company wants to expand their business. So it is certainly that we have to invest the times, the monies into the new plants, but now the economy environment is not that good. So I think the risk of opening a new plant is very big. And of course, if you can get your money back, it's not a big deal. So thank you. Oh, would you like to have any questions? Yeah, we would like to answer it.
So how big a player are they in the alternative energy market, the solar energy, biofuels, and so forth? So do you know how big they are? If you don't, that's fine.
You mean
Like solar panels and all this stuff. Do they make a lot of it? I know, for example, China produces a lot.
Yeah.
But Germany is, I think by 2020 or I think they said by 2020 they want to have about 30% of their energy from alternatives, 30 or 40%. So do you know if they have lots of investments or?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine if you don't know. You know. Just curious.
They have recently, actually, I was reading about that. They have recently the actual government purchased a significant amount, like 20% of what they actually purchased over the year was from them for solar panels.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, please help me welcome Group 5.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan, this is Leah and Jennifer. We're going to talk to you about Visit Berlin. I think we kind of chose this company, well first because Hard Rock was already taken, second because what better way to learn about Berlin than to learn about a travel company in Berlin. So to start off, that means welcome to Berlin. I'm not going to butcher it for you guys. I'm sure you can do a better job than I can.
Berlin.
Okay, something like that. I'm not going to try that. But they were opened in 1993. Basically what they do is they provide information about Berlin and about Germany to potential visitors. And it's not just tourists. It's actually like corporations, and basically why should you come to Berlin for your next event or your next conference. They do everything from providing lists of hotels to sightseeing to walking tours, all that kind of stuff. They have 6 business units. They also operate Berlin Tourist Information, which is essentially just like for us, for just regular tourists, not for the corporate community. They have this really awesome program called Welcome Card, and essentially what the Welcome Card is you buy it, I want to say it's equivalent to like 30 American dollars. They offer it in a couple different options, and basically what it is, it's kind of like a discount card for all the public transportation. You can get on all the public transportation if you have the Welcome Card. Hotel discounts, that kind of thing. The CEO is Burkhard Kiker. He was hired from Berlin airports. He was trained as a journalist, and I think he operated or helped coordinate like 160 different country airlines into the Berlin airports. So he has kind of a unique perspective. He's considered the senior tourism advisor for Berlin. I hate reading off slides, but this kind of encapsulates everything that Visit Berlin is. Our goal is to globally market the destination of Berlin even more successfully together with you. We offer you numerous service features from product training to study trips up to the promotional materials for your clients. We'll also gladly support you with the development of products that are in line with the market. Ask us, we know Berlin. So essentially they're just the authority on Berlin. Let's see. Okay, I didn't know this, but over 1 million visitors go into Berlin every single month. So that's obviously a huge number. Like I said, they provide the bike tours, the Welcome Card. They have concerts and all kinds of stuff, art exhibits, that kind of thing. The German government actually hires Visit Berlin to market Berlin to the rest of the world. So they're contracted by the government. Let's see. Okay, these are just some stats on tourism. Basically, the most important things on here is tourism contributed 5% to Germany's total GDP, or the European GDP, excuse me. And Berlin is actually ranked second as the venture for business meetings in the world. So Visit Berlin's goal is obviously to move it to first place. Financial crisis, we've heard about that a lot. I'm not going to talk about that. European Monetary Union is in a huge crisis, obviously. A huge opportunity they do have is throughout the financial crisis, actually, now they're improving the transportation systems a lot and the IT. So they're getting more cutting edge the more they develop, the longer the years go on. So that's a huge opportunity for them, and I'm going to pass on.
Thank you. So next, I'll go ahead and talk about the government implications. And as she stated before, as Megan said before, the government is really pushing, and Visit Berlin is one of their vendors, technically, and they're really pushing social responsibilities, and they're really trying to market Berlin. As she said before, there's so many, 1 million visitors come to Berlin per month, and they're really trying to push that and get to the top. Right now, they're ranked number 3 behind London and Paris, and they're trying to get to that number 1 spot in Europe. They're also promoting foreign language, making sure that everyone in the industry that works in the tourism industry speaks multiple languages, and just working on improving the skills of the employees as well. The leading business is Touristic Union International. That's also headquartered in Berlin. As you can tell from the big numbers up there, there are lots of employees. Travel agencies, 12 hotel brands, 120 airlines, and 10 cruise ships. In Germany is the largest market in that with 27%. Another leading business is Destination Germany. Is kind of the brand marketing and the technique that they're using to promote Berlin and to promote Germany on a whole to tourists both in Europe and around the world. And they're also headquartered in Berlin, and that encompasses the German National Tourist Board, which gets 75% of their total funding from the government. So as I said before, the government's really trying to push the whole tourism industry and getting visitors, both internationally and from Europe on the whole. Political opportunities are, as we heard before, Berlin's really into not just their own self-interest, but also the interest of the countries around them in Europe, and that's the whole European integration, making sure that it's for the betterment of not just Germany, but for everyone else. There's little possibility of one party taking over as far as politics go, because we all saw before with Hitler and that whole regime, and they really don't want a repeat of that. Another institution that was implemented after World War II is the Federal Constitutional Court, and that is the highest court in Germany, based in Berlin, and they're basically there for any appeals that need to go to that higher court, and what they say goes in the end. Political threats, We've heard multiple times about the European crisis, but one thing is that on September 12th, the Federal Constitution Court said yes to the Eurozone Rescue Fund, which encompasses the European Stability Mechanism, and that means that Germany is going to pledge 190 billion euros to that permanent rescue fund, which is replacing a temporary one that they have right now. And now Leah will talk about the social one.
So I'm just going to talk to you quickly about the social opportunities in Berlin. Basically, it's that it has so much to offer. It's a really good mixture of history, just because it's such an old city, but then with the fall of the wall, there's been lots of modernization recently. So there's lots of different sightseeing opportunities, history, culture, art, and then also there's so many business opportunities just as it's the capital, and so many large companies have offices there. So here's just some things that we'll see when we're there. That is one of the biggest draws, the Brandenburg Gate, the TV tower, the museum island, the Berlin Philharmonic, the wall, the Holocaust Memorial, all these great things. And as they mentioned before, the German National Tourism Board does all these wonderful campaigns. It's a really big draw to lots of different people in Germany. The threat is essentially the other countries around it. It really just needs to differentiate itself as the place to go in Europe. I'm going to just kind of speed through here a little bit. Economic impact. Sorry, we're like almost out of time. I know you guys are so disappointed. There's a lot of opportunities. They're going to be opening up an airport. They expect the number of tourists to increase by like 30% in the coming years. So Berlin is kind of on the, I guess, on the cutting edge. They're kind of the vanguard in Europe right now. Really quick, economic threats. Obviously, don't need to talk about the financial crisis. There's actually really high gas prices in Germany, which kind of prevent people from flying and traveling around Germany, and it also takes a lot of the German citizens' leisure money away from them, so they can't do as many kind of fun touristy things while they're there. I think that's about it. Yeah, do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, actually I have questions. As we know, tourism is really a very important industry for every country, but many residents always will have negative attitude to outsiders because this means they will share the resource or the environment cost, something like these reasons. So what about these problems in Berlin?
I actually read an article about that while I was researching this, and there have been some protests recently. I know that in the beginning of September they had some of the locals picketing, but as I read the article, it was a very small group of people, a very small number of local citizens in Berlin that are picketing and that are against that, and it's really minuscule compared to everyone that's there. So it's not that big of a concern, but as you said before, there's always the local citizens always have an issue with tourists coming, but it's not as prominent of an issue. And the government is working to try to make sure that they aren't driving any tourists away.
You guys really should go to that site before we all go. It's incredible how much stuff is on there, like especially if you're going early or late, like free bike tours and concerts and art exhibits. You should go to the site, it's awesome. So, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, group 7, let's welcome them.
Hello, my name is Alex. This is Matt, Ben, and Shay, and we're presenting on Deutschbahn HG, their transportation and freight service in Germany. First, we're going to go over the industry. Recently, through 2007 to 2011, they've had declining profits, but it's projected to go up from 2012 to 2016. Just last year, they had $70.6 billion in revenue, 66.2 from the road freight, and 4.4 from the rail freight. Factors that affect the growth in the industry are the buyer power, which is limited due to limited amount of transportation providers there. And then also you have the supplier power, which is pretty high, being that there's only a few amount of suppliers there, and there's a high investment to be a supplier, so it's hard to backwards integrate. Then you also have the threat of new entrants, which is low, because you need to buy trains, you gotta get railroad routes, and everything like that. And then substitutes are rarely as efficient as roads and railways because planes can only carry so much. And rivalry is minimal due to it's high due to minimal differentiation. So many companies are so similar, they offer the same products that it's hard to separate yourself as a company there. Leaders in the industry by net incomes are Deutsche Bahn AG, which had $1.834 billion in net profit last year. You had Deutsche Post AG with 1.617, and Kuhn and Nagel International AG with $0.678 billion in profit last year. Now I'm going to pass it over to Shay, who will tell you more.
All right, I'm going to discuss the opportunities and threats that the overall industry in which Deutsche Bahn operates is facing. A key opportunity from the political front is high-tech strategy. This is a government initiative. It's investments in R&D and innovation then into 17 different fields. And one of these, as the last group mentioned, is in transportation technologies in particular. Another opportunity from an economic standpoint is that it is transportation services, one of the fastest growing sectors in Germany, with projected growth of 15.7% from now until the year 2016. And another opportunity more on the passenger front is in regards to technology, with improvements in technology, speed and comfort, two attributes of any travel service, get improved, and as a result, traveling by rail is a more attractive service. As for a couple of threats, economically, there's rising inflation. What this leads to is wage increases, and combined with extensive unionization in the country, gives employees more bargaining power, which could cause some financial stress for companies within the industry. Another threat is in regards to the environment, and that is the sustainable transport policy. This is a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2020. So as a result of this, companies in the industry have to make their processes more efficient while eliminating pollution, so causes a little bit of monetary value goes into that. So now I'll pass it on to Matt, who's going to talk about the company itself.
So yeah, I'm going to talk about a little bit of the history of the company itself. The company is the second largest transportation company in the world, and it's, like the name it says, it's Deutsche Bahn, means Germany Railroad. The company is recently new. It started in 1994 after the unification of Germany in November 1989. Itself, the company is a unification of the two main railroads in the west and the east of Germany. They two got together in 1994 and formed Deutsche Bank with others. Now, presently, they have 1,000 subsidiaries, 287 in Germany. The rest are in the other 130 countries. And they transport about 2 billion people per year. The mission of the company is to become the world's leading mobility and logistic company. They plan on doing this by following this strategy that's customer-oriented. They believe that the customer is the number one, and that's their number one asset. Economically successful, because they do this by charging low cost and at the same time high quality. They're really progressive. They follow a very futuristic view, and they try to get the best in technology and eco-friendly as possible. They're all very collaborative. They do very synergetic between their investments and their future expansion. Now Ben is going to keep talking about it.
All right, the CEO is Rudiger Grube. He became chairman and CEO in 2009. Prior to this, he received his PhD in industrial science and polytechnology. Also, he served on various boards for companies such as Hyundai Motors and Daimler-Benz Aerospace. Leadership qualities. After 2008 and the economic collapse took over in 2009, the company was at an all-time low with revenues and reputation. He used several operations and acquisitions, and since 2009 has boosted revenues 26%. The company operations. Globally, they focus mainly on air, rail, and other transportation services. This is divided into passenger transport, transportation services and logistics, and infrastructure services. Within Germany, they mainly focus on the passenger transport side, in mainly rail and some bus. Opportunities for the business going forward. The overall business expansion throughout the world. They're present in over 130 countries now. They can further expand within Europe. There's several countries that they are not present in and do not have a big market share in. The growth of the air freight and logistics sector. This is a booming industry, especially in emerging markets. that they can definitely take advantage of, as well as the acquisitions that they've done in the past and should continue to do so. Threats in the overall industry. Like Shay said, transportation regulation, this includes emission threats that may add costs to the overall business. Consumer privacy protection. In 2008, their reputation was ruined when they were seen as spying on their employees. So privacy of their consumers is very important, as well as the intense competition that is natural in the transportation industry. And that is it for us. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Give your full attention to Group 9 and help me welcome them.
All right, I'm Colin. I'm going to start off by just giving you guys a little background information about Bayer, and then I'll introduce you to the mission and values, and then talk about their CEO. Bayer was originally founded as a dye-stuff manufacturer in 1863, and they migrated into the pharmaceutical industry in 1899. They have 4 different divisions: animal health, consumer care, medical, and pharmaceuticals. Their strategy is focused on long-term sustainability and tapping into emerging markets. The mission of Bayer, their slogan is Bayer Science for a Better Life. Their goal is to help patients around the world by preventing, alleviating, and curing diseases, as well as improving the diagnosis, and to ensure a sufficient supply of high-quality food, feed, and fiber, and make significant contributions in the fields of energy and resource efficiency. Their goal is to help create medicines that aid in improving healthcare around the world. The current CEO is Dr. I believe you say it, is it Martin Deckers? Martin Deckers, and he was appointed October 1st, 2010. He studied chemistry and chemical engineering. From 2002 to 2010, he was the CEO for Thermoelectron. He's the vice president of the German Chemical Industry Association, and he serves on the board for General Electric. That's all.
So Bayer Healthcare Pharmaceuticals headquarters is actually in Leverkusen, Germany, and they have a very large global presence and have locations in Europe, North America, Latin America, Asia, and Africa. The #1 market for Bayer Healthcare is in Europe, and this is considered their home market. They have the highest sales there, and they also have many of the production facilities. Some of their main production centers can be found in Germany, Finland, Italy, and Spain. Their second largest market is in North America, and so they have 3 headquarters here, which can be found in Jersey, in New York, and in Pennsylvania. And their third largest market is Asia Pacific, and this is made up of countries such as China, India, Japan, Australia, and other surrounding countries. When looking at Bayer's global operations, we see that they have a lot of opportunities available to them. One of the largest opportunities is that they have blockbuster potential in many drug markets, specifically in the United States and in Japan. Another opportunity is an increased sales in China, and this is due to a growing market. Some threats that we see are a decrease in sales in their home market in Europe, and this is because of an aging population. And another threat is regulatory controls, but this is a norm in the industry. Now I'll pass on to Steph.
I'm going to give a bit of an overview of the pharmaceutical industry in Germany. It is comprised of 243 companies. We can mention Pfizer, Roche, that are among Bayer, that are the most important companies in the industry. In 2008, Germany was the world's third largest pharmaceutical market in terms of sale, and the 4th largest producer of pharmaceutical in the tri-region. That refers to Europe, North America, and Japan. And it's composed 30% by generic medicines. Due to government regulations regarding the price of the medicines, the pharmaceutical industry has been focused on foreign markets, not in Germany, and they have been their major exported. They export the majority of their products to Belgium, UK, Switzerland, and Netherlands, and in 2008, the export ratio reached 56%. This graph represents the market value and the percentage growth of the pharmaceutical industry in Germany, and as we can observe in 2008 to 2010, the percentage of growth has been declining, and it's expected to rise in 2012 and in 2015. In this graph, we can observe the market value in 2012. The pharmaceutical industry is composed of $31.9 million, and it, as I told you, it was going to start to experience a growth of 1.9%. And in 2015, the pharmaceutical industry is expected to worth $33.3 million, and it's expected to experience a 1% growth.
All right, and as the factors of growth increase, the growth of the pharmaceutical industry should continue to be stable. One of the factors of growth is population growth, not only in Germany but worldwide. Germany has 82 million inhabitants, which is the most in Europe. And over the past 20 years, the average life expectancy of women has grown by 4 years, and for men it's been 5 years. So along with an increase in population and an increase in awareness in health and wellness, there should be a continued increase in demand for pharmaceutical goods. Exports are another factor of growth. An export ratio is defined as foreign sales as a percentage of total sales. So as you can see, in 1995, the export ratio was 30.5%, and by 2009, this more than doubled to 61.4%. So this 61.4% means that there was out of all the total sales of pharmaceutical goods, 61.4% of them were exports. Another large factor of growth in Germany is research and development expenditures. As you can see, in 1996, the expenditures for research and development were 2.45 billion euro. And again, this more than doubled by 2009 to 5.22 billion euro. This 5.22 billion euro accounted for 13.7% of total pharmaceutical sales. Government support is also very strong for the pharmaceutical industry, as they recognize that life sciences are going to be a determining factor in the 21st century, and thus they dedicated 1.2 billion euro over the past few years to research and development in the pharmaceutical industry. And as far as government regulations go, the law involving investments and establishment of new companies in Germany is the same for Germans as it is for all foreigners. And foreign direct investment favors freedom of foreign trade and payment.
The pharmaceutical industry is very competitive and complex, but with the help of the growth of aspirin, Bayer has been able to hold 23% of the pharmaceutical industry, and it's dominated by mostly large firms. As you can see here, Pfizer, Novartis, Merck, and Johnson & Johnson were all founded in the late 1800s, and that's because of what Mike mentioned about the large research and development costs and huge risks that goes into it. Of all the new compounds that are found, 1 out of every 20,000 actually becomes approved and goes to market, and then of those, only 1 out of 3 has enough revenue to cover the cost. So there's a lot of pressure on these companies to develop these huge blockbuster billion-dollar products. So there's been a growing trend towards companies creating Me Too drugs where they cut back on research and development and then just copy competitors. And this created a challenge not only among the companies, but it's also bad for consumers because they're not getting as many scientific developments as in the past. And I think that concludes it for now. Does have any questions?
Thank you. Group 10, once again, it's the last group. Let's go.
Good afternoon, everyone. And our topic today is the economic environment in Germany. And here is my agenda. And our presentation consists of five parts, and we will go through some of the basic indicators such as GDP and inflation rate and trade balance to see the basic general background of the economic, and we will go through some of the big events, and we will give you some forecast for the future development. And let's begin with the current condition and the development. Well, first of all, the GDP figures. Germany plays a very good job for the past years, and their GDP shows a very a promising future, but in the 2009, they suffered from the Eurozone crisis, and the inflation rate for the Germany decreases from since 2007, and the employment rate is not that very high under the background of crisis. However, it's relatively lower than it was in 2007, which is very impressive. And the government budget raised since 2008, and the business environment, which the trade balance increases, but because of the appreciation of the euro currency, and the German goods become less competitive in the world market. And let's go to see the financial systems. Well, when we talk about the financial system, we mainly talk about the stock market, the banking systems, the bond market, and the derivative market. And Germany is a bank-based financial market systems, but the stock market just owns 24% of the market value of GDP. And the largest and oldest stock exchange is Frankfurt, which accounts for 85% of its security turnover of the stock market. And the banking system, Germany do not have its own banking systems. It's merged into the Euro central banking system since 1999. And the bond market is not that impressive. It has the same and similar bonds like other countries, just federal bonds and treasury bonds. And I can't speak Germany, so I do not know what else but you can see it. And very impressive, the derivative market, Eurex, is the emerging market. And you can get very high repay from this market, but you can risk out very high risks. And here are some products that you can invest in Eurex. And well, let's go to the biggest and the most attractive event through all these years is the crisis, Eurozone crisis. And we'll have a very quick overview of this crisis. It started in 2009 in Greece, and the debt crisis of one of the government. You have definitely know the bankruptcy of the corporation, but you have never heard the bankruptcy of the government before this event. So it's very extraordinary. And this crisis took place and it spread all over the European countries and devastated the European countries' economy. And well, the causes for this crisis is hard to describe, but the biggest ones, some of the countries just like Greece and Italy, they borrow too much. Once they can repay their debts, the chain reaction will happen, even lead to the bankruptcy of the whole government. And Germany itself plays a very good job at their own economic development, but it inevitably affected by the economic climate of the surrounding countries. So Germany suffered from a decrease in 2009. And Germany has tried its best to get rid of the recession. But if there is one country in the Eurozone who can bail out the insolvent countries in the Eurozone, that is definitely Germany. And I think in the future it can recover from this crisis. And let's stop thinking about that frustrated crisis and let's see something good. The business environment. The business environment, Germany has a long reputation for its business environment, investment environment, and even under the crisis and under the recession of the whole world economy, it still have the growth, showing growth, and have a stable trade balance for its business. And because of the low inflation rate, the very high quantity of labor, and also the stable wage level, Germany attracts a lot of investors to go to Germany to invest and start businesses. This can be kind of a help and definitely will help the future recovery of the whole economy. And that is also why Germany can recover that fast than other European countries. And here is the last part of our presentation. We predict that in the long run, as the figure shows, the GDP and the economic will rising, but the growth rate will not that fast than before. And the inflation rate, which Germany has a very long reputation to control its inflation rate, won't still go very high. Go very but the unemployment, because of the robust labor market, and it will still keep low level. And because of the prices and the prediction of the prices will last in the long run, so the exchange rate will still further decline. And because Euro Central Bank wants to stimulate the economy, so they will keep the interest rate very low, and the financial market reaction, the bond yield will increase in 2013. That's all. Any questions?